Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bon Voyage Besties, your go to podcast for friendship, travel, and a little bit of humor along the way. Today's episode is a special one as we welcome an incredible guest who truly embodies the spirit of adventure, outdoor personality, and award winning TV host, Misty Wells. As the first female host of an outdoor show on Fox Sports, Misty made history, and 8 years later, her adventures now reach millions worldwide. Good for you, Misty,
Well,
throughout the
thank
Discovery
you.
Channel and 16 other networks. Through her series, Let's Take It Outside, she takes viewers on mild to wild journeys featuring stunning destinations, outdoor adventures, local cuisine, and cultures around the world. Today, we talk to Misty about what it takes to create a new season of a travel and adventure show, from planning the trips to the behind the scenes work that brings these unforgettable experiences to life. So get ready for an amazing episode. So welcome Misty to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited. I'm a big fan of your podcast. So to be a guest today is really exciting.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I feel like I just became your number one fan. I was like, sometimes people tell me like you love doing it outdoorsy stuff, and I'm like, not really. Don't be fooled by what I post on social media. Like I dab in the outdoor world here and there, but I wouldn't consider myself like an outdoor enthusiast. So definitely living vicariously and going to be checking out your episodes. So if you can tell our listeners a little bit about your background and how you got into the outdoor television.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me on the podcast. And, I grew up in Florida. So, of course, we do have an opportunity for year round outdoors here most of the time. And you grow up in the outdoors. A lot of times it's when you're younger and your parents are like, go outside until the street lights come on. You're driving me crazy. And we just carried that throughout my whole life. And of course, for my kids here, and not just in Florida, but especially in Florida, where I live in the Tampa Bay area, there is a whole lot to do in the outdoors. And now I've just decided to kind of take that worldwide and see what else there is to do all over the planet.
I love that. And like I said, I don't consider myself an outdoor enthusiast. However, with the pandemic, we were really limited on traveling or what we can do. And my daughter at the time, she was running cross country and
Wow.
track at school. So she was like, well, let's just go hiking. Let's just do this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not really much of a hiker, but I was like, you know what? There's nothing else to do. And there's so many like cool outdoor and like hiking trails within like the North New Jersey and like New York area. So that kind of became like one of our new like hobbies to do. So like every weekend we would find like a different place to visit. And then last year we went on a mother-daughter adventure and did like a hiking trip in Iceland, which was like scary but fun at the same time.
Right? COVID was, I think we can all agree, a horrible experience. And throughout horrible experiences, you do try to find the silver lining, and you found your silver lining. I think the number one takeaway from that is you and your daughter connected through some cool activities that you did in the outdoors. And it didn't have to be anything. You were starting out with hiking and just being outside, whether it's for, hey, lack of something, nothing else to do because that's what we can do right now. And look what it transformed into. You guys took a trip to Iceland, and that's just an unforgettable experience. I've never been, but I can only imagine the memories you guys have from that.
It's a beautiful place. So if you ever get a chance to go, I highly, highly recommend it.
Absolutely. It's on my list.
So there you go. It's like so many great places to visit. And that's a good thing with the outdoors that anywhere that you can visit, depending on what your interests are, whether you like hiking, whether you like the beach, kayaking, different type of sports, I feel like every destination has something different and a different scenery to offer. Although I have to say, growing up in Florida, you have beautiful beaches. I went to Tampa a couple of years ago and went to like
Great.
St. Pete and like the beaches are beautiful. Nothing like the beaches we have here in Jersey. So a little jealous there.
Well, I have been up to Jersey. And one thing that's on my bucket list to come up there, I've heard a lot about catching bluefish. I do love to fish, but I love the outdoors no matter what I'm doing. So another thing that's on my list up there for Jersey is to go catch some bluefish. So I'm excited. And I'm glad that you were able to come down here. I live in Clearwater, St. Pete, and we have been voted America's number one beach quite a few years in a row. So I'm glad that you got to have that experience.
And it's definitely a well-deserved title. So I know you mentioned growing up in Florida, were accustomed to going outside, but what made you pursue this into a career in television?
Well, it's a bit of a funny story, and I won't, drag it out too long. But raising my kids as a single mom, one of my girlfriends owned a magazine, and she's like, "Hey, you like doing stuff outside, and I think you fish. So would you like to write an outdoor column in the magazine?" And they published every quarter, so it's like that sounds fun, and that opened the door for me to get outside, go to different locations, somewhat in the area and take my kids and have these adventures. And of course, because we're doing a feature article, they would host us. So I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. So that kind of got the wheels turning and I started writing for that magazine and then other magazines approached me because they liked the style of writing that it was family friendly content and wasn't all just leaning towards a male demographic. It was a different point of view. That segued into writing for the Tampa Bay Times, which is Florida's largest newspaper at the time it was. I think it still is. And this was right about the time YouTube was starting to get popular. Like, huh, what's YouTube? So the paper was like, could you do some videos coupled with your articles? They didn't give me a lot of space in the paper, but I said that'd be great because then we could tell the story a little better and started making YouTube videos with my kids and daughter. And someone at Fox Sports saw those and said, hey, what about doing a TV show? Which is totally crazy. And I had no idea what I was doing.
It sounds a little bit about my journey, so kind of similar. I kind of just fell into doing like blogging and content creation. A friend of mine, she was writing an article about a hotel that I had visited, but
Oh,
she
nice.
wanted it from the point of view of like a mother-daughter, family friendly, and that kind of spirals my career into content creation. But I like what you say too, because you're bringing a different perspective. Because sometimes when we think of the outdoors, it's kind of like a male dominated field. So normally, if you're seeing like whether it's a magazine article or you're seeing like a brand, they're appealing to the male. So I love that this is something that you were able to do, bring a completely new perspective. And also, you got to do this with your kids, which I'm sure
Exactly.
made it even extra special.
Exactly. My daughter, I think at 13 was my first camera person. And obviously she did a good job. We had so much fun. And she has a natural talent for it as well. But, it was just a lot of fun. I mean, we would get to swim with manatees and go fishing, go on bike rides, visit different resorts and different things like that. We had a good time with it. We had a lot of fun.
It sounds pretty cool. So, at what moment did you realize, all right, I can turn this into a full time profession?
So, as you probably know, you're still working your regular job, and I was in hospitality for over 20 years in the hotel business and doing this. And I was like, okay, at some point, I got to walk through that door and make it work. But I'm grateful to say, I know it doesn't always happen like this, but it did take off pretty quickly. People were really craving the type of content that we are putting out and similar to what you're doing as well. You don't have to be hardcore, you don't have to be an expert. You could actually just go try something that you've never done before, be a little okay with possibly making a fool of yourself, but who cares? It's all in fun. It's just, I think, fun to get out there and try something. Within the first season, I was like, okay, we're doing this full time.
That's pretty cool. And I feel people can relate, like what you said, even if you're trying something and failing, it feels authentic. And as a
Mhm.
beginner, I'll watch a video like that and I'll be like, all right, well, she tried it. It inspires me to want to do it too. So I feel like a lot of people can relate. So I can see why it was such a hit.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And we get to go to really interesting places too. So initially, we started filming locally in Florida, and very quickly that expanded to different locations in Costa Rica and the Cayman Islands and Niagara Falls and things like that. I think a lot of too, a thing that makes it very popular is the beautiful locations that we're going to because I'll watch a certain show, even if I don't totally care about the reality show, like I'll watch The Housewives. They're in Italy right now. So
Oh,
I'm loving where they're going and what they're doing and watching where all these cool villas and things that because I want to see where they're at and what they're doing. Not
Yeah.
not necessarily the fighting, but I like the scenery.
Not the drama, we're just there for the views.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I feel like a lot of times too, even with like content creation, people see things on social media and they're like, oh, it must be cool to go on a press trip or work with a hotel or a tourism board. And you're hosted by these amazing brands and they just see the final product, right? But they don't see all of the behind the scenes that goes on, whether it's, researching the destination, coming up with the content for the videos or the photos that you're taking. So it is a lot of work, especially I feel like in the TV industry, it's still very male dominated. So have
Right.
you found that there are any challenges, at least at the beginning when you first started, or even still now?
In the beginning, when I first started, there's always challenges because you always want to get better and you want to improve, but not be too hard on yourself. In the beginning, I felt like I had to compete with the guys because at that time, was the only outdoor show hosted by a female. There's a few hunting shows and stuff, but this is more than just hunting. And once I realized I didn't have to try and mimic what someone else was doing and I could just be myself, it was so much better. It was so much more fun too. So, I mean, there is a lot of behind the scenes work that goes into it because I also am the producer. I have a film crew and an editing crew. But aside from that, I go out and I work with all my sponsors directly. I plan every episode, where we're going to go, what we're going to do, when we're going to do it. And usually we show up at a location for 2 days, and it's about a 2 day shoot per episode, roughly.
And so it's a lot that goes on in the back end, so I can definitely appreciate seeing the final product.
Yeah, and it's like being on fast forward vacation. So we're shooting as soon as the sun comes up, sometimes before, until the sun goes down well after for 2 full days. So some days are 20-hour days because time is money, and the longer you're there, the more production costs. So you have to try and get in there, get everything, and hope the weather goes well and everything cooperates. And so far, we get pretty lucky.
That's good, yeah, because there's a lot of different external factors. It's bad enough everything that you have to plan and control yourself, but then when you're dealing with the outdoor, you're at Mother Nature's mercy.
Yes,
So sometimes it's happened to me. That's why I've learned now whenever I travel somewhere and it is primarily to capture content or if I'm working on something, I try to do everything like right when I get there. If it's beautiful out, I'll capitalize on that because it's happened to me where I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm only gonna be here for 5 days," and the rest of the days, the weather's just been, like, a total shit show,
I
and I'm
learned
just
the hard way
like,
that one too. Yeah. I'm like, if it's beautiful, we were on our way and there was a beautiful lighthouse on an island and we wanted to fly the drone and it was perfect and there were dolphins and I'm like, this is awesome. And I was like, okay, but we'll get it on the way back. Well, on the way back, the thunderstorms rolled in and we never were able to get what we wanted from that. So I learned the hard way. Like, if you got to take a beat and be a little behind schedule, to get that content, do it then and there because it may not be there when you get back.
exactly. So, definitely can relate on that. So, is there any advice that you would have for women wanting to work in the outdoor media or travel TV?
Honestly, outwork everybody. And I don't care what gender they are or what they're doing, is just outwork them. You don't have to be better than, it doesn't matter if you don't have experience. We're all very intelligent for the most part. So it's okay if you make a mistake. Just get out and do it and don't quit. And that will bring you over the finish line. And you'll find your groove, you'll find your jam. May not happen right away, but just don't quit, outwork everybody, and try not to get defeated. Sometimes you're like, what was I thinking? But for the
That's
most
me
part,
90% of the time.
yeah, sometimes we go there and other people on the outside are looking in, they're like, it's so great, and you're like, sometimes it's not. But I mean, most of the time it is, and I'm very grateful that I get to do this, for sure.
that. Like, I tell my daughter all the time, like, it's better to try and fail than to look back and regret not trying at all. Because, like,
Yes.
at the end of the day, you try something new, you might succeed, you might not. It might take you more time to learn a different skill set, but at least you're getting out there. You're pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. Like I said early on in the episode, I wasn't much of the outdoor person growing up, but over the last like 10 years or so, I'm trying to push myself a little bit more outside of my comfort zone, going on different hiking trails. We did a trip to Costa Rica
Wow.
and we went zip lining, which I almost chickened out, but I was
But you
like,
did
all
it.
right, I
Yay.
did it. Yeah.
Okay.
My husband and daughter, when I crossed over, they're like, we didn't think you were going to make it over. And I was like, but I did it.
Exactly, and
you
it
know?
gives you that sense of you're creating memories and that sense of accomplishment because you're like, "Wow, I did step out." Now there's some things I do in the show that are really stepping out, like wrestling alligators and hunting
Yeah.
pythons, and look, you don't have to go that far. Going on some beautiful hikes and just experiencing something new, and that's why we say mild to wild because I think most of the wild things people just want to see if I'm going to get eaten by a shark or not. I don't know if they want to do it. They just want to see what's really going to happen.
It was like, is she gonna make it out alive? Let's
Exactly. That's the main goal. Nobody died. Okay, we made it.
Yeah, that's a big extreme. I know I went to New Orleans for one of my friend's birthday, and we kinda did, like, a swamp tour, and
Fun.
at one point on the tour, they kinda, like, stopped, and the guy brought out, like, a baby alligator, and he was handing them over, and I looked at it, I was like, "No, you can just, like, skip me," and he's like, "But just hold it." I was like, "Alright." So my friend was like, "At least hold it, take a picture." I was petrified. I'm, like, holding this little baby alligator, and it's opening its mouth, so I can't even imagine trying to wrestle an alligator. Gosh,
Yeah, it's we've done some like nuisance alligator trapping to where maybe they're in someone's yard and obviously it's a safety thing or at a dog park and then you get them and you relocate them somewhere else. So that's it can be a lot of fun but also kind of scary. But the thing when I do or just for the audience, when I'm doing something like that, I'm doing it with someone that knows what they're doing. I'm not just jumping out of my truck and like I got it. Obviously I'm with someone that's helping me through it to the best of their ability. So it's all safe.
good, good.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you also produced a show. So how do you choose like your destinations?
So it's that's kind of the fun part, and I really like the behind the camera work. So right now, just for instance, the state of Wisconsin reached out and they said, "Hey, we want you to come and film 2 episodes here." So now, basically, I do a lot of laptop research and look at just a lot of different locations. Sometimes they'll be like, "Well, we want you to be in this region and what you want to do." I get to do a little investigative work and kind of go through what there is to do and what would make a really fun, cohesive episode. And then also, too, we include the local culture, whatever that is, and culinary. So, of course, when we all travel, we're interested in all the cool new things to eat. Or like you were in New Orleans, I'm sure you had some cool gumbo and etouffee and beignets and all that stuff. So I get to incorporate some great culinary experiences in the show too.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's fun.
I'm ready to plan like my next adventure, even though I have a trip planned like in 2 weeks.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, the planning I mean, at least for me, the planning and the research process is so exciting. Now, actually putting everything together and executing the trip, that's a whole nother story. But the initial research, I love doing that and just discovering
Yeah.
different destinations.
And you're like, "Oh, I could do that." And then you find this. You might come across a great podcast like yours or someone that went there and you can gain her some local intel and things like that. So, or sometimes even on the fly. Mostly we're pretty buttoned up, but if there's something we're like, we got to add in, I do try and have a little extra time if something pops up that we just can't live without.
I love that. I know we always say that always leave some room for adventure because you never know. You could be going to a specific waterfall, maybe something along the way catches your eye. So definitely making sure you're leaving some room to kind of explore and be a little bit more free.
Exactly.
So can you walk us through a little bit more about how planning process in terms of like the logistics? How far in advance do you schedule your filming?
So a lot of it depends on, where we're going. So again, I'll say Wisconsin. Of course, it's cold up there right now. Nobody wants to do that unless we were doing an ice fishing episode, but they want to showcase their amazing summertime. So we're looking at, June, July. It's a great time to escape hot Florida during that time.
Oh, yes.
And to go up there and we look at different regions. Top Chef, actually, and I love that's one of my favorite shows, filmed a whole season in Wisconsin. So one of the chefs actually on the show was from there, from Milwaukee. So I've reached out to him and I'm hoping that we'll be able to include him in the show. So really just kind of research, like you said, and getting different information and talking to the destination to what's important to them. Of course, we got to do something with cheese. There's some kind of run down a hill and a cheese ball chases you thing. Still looking into it. I don't know. My daughter told
It's
me
interesting and
I'm
fun.
not sure if I want to do that, but I definitely will look into it.
Uh,
But that, you just really kind of dig in and do some research. The neat thing is, I kind of get to pick what I want to do. And then I'll be like, here's my ideas. And they'll usually say, that's great. And then we set our film dates and either drive or fly in, and we're good to go. I usually, for places I haven't been, I try to stay an extra day just because when we are there filming, there's no downtime. So you're not on vacation really. You are there working. So that way I get one day or maybe two to just hang out and explore when I'm not filming and actually be a visitor and a tourist.
I love that because you have a little bit of mix of both. I try to do the same thing. If I am going on a specific press trip, then I know, okay, I'm here to work. And if I can squeeze in some downtime or an extra day, I'll try to do that. But then I
Mhm.
also like to have specific vacations where I'm just like relaxing, especially if I'm going with my family, just to kind of like decompress. Because, like you said, it's great that you're experiencing a new destination, you get to film in some cool locations, but it's still work and they're long days. And being
Right.
on the camera, being animated, it is a lot of energy that you're using up. So it's always nice to kind of have a nice balance and being able to kind of decompress and actually enjoy a destination.
Exactly. I totally agree with you.
So, have you come across any unexpected challenges while filming? I'm sure there's been a bunch.
Geez, how long is this podcast now? How long do I get? So my new title for the year, I guess, or my tagline is something that I found out the hard way is don't wrestle an alligator in yoga pants. In my
There's a story behind that.
really, there is a story. And I'm actually speaking at some different conferences and things as well. And as that's the title of it. But where that came from is the first time I wrestled an alligator, my thought was, okay, I need running shoes because I got to run away fast in case something happens, and something comfortable so I can like move around or do whatever I got to do. I didn't know what it would be, but I was like trying to prepare myself. The thing I found out, when you sit on an alligator, yoga pants are very slippery. Now I
Mhm.
know why they wear jeans, because you don't slide around. So when that alligator, which this was not planned, got up and started walking towards the water with his two friends in the water and me on his back, I'm sliding all over the place. And you can't jump off either because they'll tail sweep you into their mouth. So because he told me a bunch of stuff, that was the only thing that I actually remembered. He's like, no matter what happens, don't jump off. So as the alligator's bringing me to be dinner for his buddies, I just remembered I wasn't able to jump off. But there's always some crazy stories. um, because we are dealing with some outdoor animals. We've done some things with sharks, pythons, things like that. But on average, we're doing pretty normal stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of behind the scenes stories where you're like, wow, I can't believe that just happened and it all turned out okay.
Thankfully, are your kids ever like, "Mom, what are you doing? That's, like, crazy."
Well, that it kind of backfires. So I have a son and a daughter, and my daughter, I forget what it was she wanted to do. She's 24, but she's like, I don't have that credit anymore where I can be like, "Well, I don't want you to do that," because 'cause they're like, "You swim with sharks," and I'm like, they throw it back on me, so there's not a whole lot I'm allowed to say to them because they'll kind of put it back on me, "Well, you do this and you do that," but it's kinda funny. Yeah,
That's so
so
funny.
they give me a hard time about it sometimes.
But I'm sure they're probably thinking like, "My mom is cool." Like, who can say my mom wrestled an alligator? I know I can, so
Right? Well,
that's
and
some
my
cool
poor
bragging
daughter,
rights.
we did a skydiving episode in season 6, the one we just wrapped, and I am not jumping out of a plane. And she had already done it once, so I'm like, "Well, just do it again and we'll film it?" So she did do it again. I did chorus her, but I kind of figured she already did it once and she did have a good time. But I was glad that it wasn't me because I was not. Yeah, that wasn't going to happen.
You're like, "This is your time to shine."
Exactly. Go for it.
Oh my god, I love that. I tell my daughter all the time, I was like, "Do as I say, not as I do," because sometimes
Exactly.
I do some crazy stuff and I look back and I'm like, "Why did I even do that?"
Right? At the time, you're like, "It seems reasonable," and then after
Exactly.
you put some thought into it, you're like, maybe I shouldn't have done that."
Exactly. I have to be careful because when I travel with my husband, sometimes I scare him a little bit and he's like, "Can you not be so close to the ledge? You're kind of clumsy. You're gonna fall over." So whenever I'm with him, I try to be more mindful and not be as crazy and adventurous so I don't give him a heart attack.
Right, so they don't get anxiety about it. We're fine.
I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
"I'm fine, stop
Exactly.
stressing me out."
You're like, "I didn't even think about it until you said it. Now you kinda ruined it?"
Exactly. Now
Exactly.
you're just putting it out there. So what would you say has been some of like your favorite destinations to film in?
Ooh, man, that's a good one. Of course, I've been to Costa Rica and filmed there twice. I think that would be top of the list for anybody, to be honest. I love going up to Niagara Falls. I've been able to film up there twice as well, and it's so cool. It's just so neat. I was there in the fall, and we don't get a lot of seasons, of course, in Florida. So anytime I can go somewhere with the different seasons and something different going on, and then, one place too, this last season, I got to go to Alaska to Sitka at the Wild Strawberry Lodge for the very first time in Alaska. So cool. So awesome. The vibe, it's cool. We got to go fishing. I caught my first halibut. It's not just because I was filming a show, they treat everybody like, they're royalty over there. And it's like a big family. So that was fun. And also Hot Springs, Arkansas was a
Interesting.
really good time. Yeah, I loved it.
Nice. Alaska sounds amazing. It has been high up on my bucket list. We actually did an episode where we talked about planning a trip to Alaska, and I'm like, I'm ready to go, although I have to save because it's an expensive trip.
It can be, but honestly, I'd love to connect you with the guys at Wild Strawberry Lodge. I don't know if you don't have to fish there, but they take care of everything and it's super affordable. I went up there and fished for 2 days and then we had one down day where we got to explore and do a little bit of hiking, pick some berries and see all the waterfalls and stuff. I was actually pleasantly surprised how affordable it was. And, with my show, I noticed, and definitely not speaking negatively on other people's platform or how they outline it, but I try to keep mine extremely affordable. Sometimes I get offered to go do these things that are a private thing where the public wouldn't really get to do it. And as much as I'd love to, that's not what I want to film. I want to film stuff that people can be like, hey, it's affordable, it's cool, I can go there and do this, and it's budget friendly and things like that. So that's really more the things that are in line with what I'm trying to showcase to the audience as well.
And I love that too, especially for myself. Whenever we do something as a family, when you multiply things by three, it adds up
Yeah.
like very, very quickly. So sometimes I joke around with like my daughter and husband. They're like, "Oh, well, if I'm going to a specific destination, they don't want to join or can't join." I'm like, "Oh, well, I guess I just have to go by myself and save up some money."
Exactly. I mean, you're like, hey, I could afford a massage now because they're staying home. Yeah.
Exactly. So, girl math. But I love that, that you're finding these like budget friendly and affordable things because when you think of the outdoors, it's expensive. Like, I
Mhm.
know I was planning a girls' trip and we were going to go skiing up in Vermont. And when we started looking at the logistic between like getting there, the hotels, even renting like gear, for the
Mhm.
day, it adds up very, very quickly. So again, especially now, things are expensive all over. So
Yeah.
whenever you can find like cool things to do that are still affordable, and I think that's the great thing too about the outdoors, that a lot of places like you can go to a hiking trail, you can go to a park. These are usually
Go on a
free things
bike
that you can
ride.
do.
So many cool
Exactly.
bike trails. Yeah.
So I
You
feel
know.
like a lot of people have this misconception that because it is like outdoors, and granted, like you said, some activities are private activities, could be a little bit more on the higher, luxurious, and upscale pricing, but there's so much that you can do out there that is still very affordable. I know when we went to Utah, we did a fly fishing tour, which was a ton
Wonderful.
of fun. I didn't realize how intense fly fishing can get and like how much patience you need to fly fish because we were there like for hours, but it was such a fun and like cool activity. So I feel like there's so much that you can do out there that sometimes we're not even thinking about, that we're just putting ourselves like in a box. So it's really cool to be able to kind of find a platform where you have like all these amazing recommendations.
And, and that's why I love fishing. You were fly fishing, but whether you're freshwater, saltwater fly fishing, you're so focused on what you're doing, you get to give your mind a break. And you forget about all the things we think about constantly. And it gives you a mental break. So, fishing is my favorite thing in the whole world, along with other things. But if I picked anything, it'd probably be fishing. And that may not be for everybody. So you'll see a lot of fishing in my episodes because if I'm there and there's water and there's something to catch, I want to at least try and catch it. Yeah.
Not to brag, but I did catch a pretty big fish on my one time fly fishing. So
Awesome. When you're fly fishing,
yeah.
aren't
So
you excited? Isn't
I
that
was
the most
so happy.
exhilarating thing? And that's hard.
Yeah, and I
Also,
almost gave
congrats.
up. The guy's like, "Nope, you're gonna do it." And I was like, "I've been here for like 5 hours. I'm pretty sure my like legs are frozen at this point." Like, I tried. And
Right.
sure enough, like the last like maybe like 15, 20 minutes, I was out there and sure enough, I caught a big one. I have to
That's
share
so
like on
cool.
social, but it was pretty cool. So I'm like,
Yes, exactly.
I
That's,
can cross that off my list.
you hung in there. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't always come that easy. That's one thing, freshwater is a little more challenging than saltwater. Saltwater, you're gonna catch something. So it gives you a little bit more action. But I'll fish for anything, anywhere, anytime. Yeah.
Very cool. So I know we talked about some of the things that can be unpredictable, like the weather, but
Mhm.
are there any other challenges that you've kind of overcome when you're filming outdoors?
The weather is a big thing. You do the good thing nowadays with technology, we've had to change some shoots before, but in the last 7 years of filming, hardly ever. So I'm very grateful for that. Just there can be different things that happen. We filmed it like, hey, we're doing a fishing show and maybe the fishing's really slow. So you start to get a little concerned because you're like, we do need to catch fish on the fishing show. But honestly, it always seems to work out. I'm very blessed. We just really haven't had too many challenges. So I'm very grateful, for that. A few crashed drones. But aside from that, not a whole lot of negative and challenging things, which I'm very grateful for.
That's really good. Although I feel like, those challenges and obstacles, they kind of prepare you and make you a little stronger. And afterwards, you're like, all right, well, we were able to kind of overcome that hurdle.
Well, and sometimes a fish breaks off. Like I had a big yellowfin tuna on in a tuna episode. So of course you want to land it and you want to be cool and all that stuff. And it got broke off. That happens. We keep that in the show because look, that's reality. If I caught every single fish that I hooked or didn't hook, I mean, that would be a little boring. I mean, at the end, or a shark gets half your fish and you don't even get the rest of it.
Oh.
That's just reality. So I mean, we leave it's authentic. We leave that stuff in there because that's real.
And I feel like that's what people can relate, right? Because they know, like, one, it's not going to be predictable. Like, is she going to catch the fish today? Is she not? So, like, it
Yeah,
keeps the
who
suspense
knows?
going.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I also love what you said before about when you travel to a destination, embracing the local community. So, how do you connect with local communities while filming?
It's a lot beforehand to dig deep and try and find those local stories like I'm sure you do when you're traveling. There's always some cool people in every destination. Most of the time, they've probably born and raised several generations, or possibly they own a really unique or, fun business there. So just kind of digging deep, talking to a lot of people and asking a lot of questions. Of course, I love sharing, okay, here's who I am, here's what I'm doing. But I really like other people's stories because if you take the time to meet the people, they've got some good stories and they love sharing how they grew up there, what happened, or why do you have this in your restaurant, or why do you do this, or are you a third generation airboat operator, and that kind of thing. So I just love that aspect. So we just kind of dig deep before we get there, contact a lot of people, make a lot of phone calls, and try and find some good, authentic stories.
Love that. I always love connecting with the local, especially like you said early on. Sometimes you're getting like recommendations on places to eat or things to do. So who better than someone who lives there and knows the location to kind of give you
Mhm.
these tips. So I feel like it's great to like use like social media. I use a lot of blogs whenever I'm doing my research, but I also love to be able to connect with the locals and ask them like, well, I had this particular restaurant in mind, but do you have any other recommendations? Or same
Mhm.
thing, like sometimes I'm like, I'm gonna go to this particular place. Is there anything else that you think I must see while I'm here? And
Same
sometimes,
here.
we get some really cool spots that I'm like, I never would have even known about it. So
Exactly. So, yeah, I like, kind of seeing it from the locals' point of view. Like, where do you go? What do you do? What do you do on the weekends or when you're not working? Tell me about that. And of course, if it's a super secret spot, they may not want me to go there because then everybody's going to know about it. But I'm like, I won't tell anybody where it is. Like we'll just go and film or something. Most of the time, they love to share it. Yeah.
yeah, that's so funny. That happened to us. We were in upstate New York and I was doing a press trip and we did like a boat tour around the lake. And the gentleman gave us a recommendation. He was like, I'm going to tell you where to go, but do not post it on social media. He's like, because it's like a really like hole in the wall. And we wanted to kind of keep it like a little hidden gem and not have everyone come out here. And I was like, don't worry. And we went there. The food was phenomenal. Everyone there was so nice. And it was like a tiny little spot that we probably would have overlooked
But
and
yeah.
we had such a great time, but, like, sometimes the locals, they kinda wanna keep those places hidden too, so
And I get that. I mean, I live in Clearwater, and I remember when Clearwater Beach didn't have a whole lot on it, and that's not the case now. It's still really cool and fun, but us locals, like we like to keep one or two things to ourselves, because it reminds us of how it was when we were growing up.
exactly. Kinda, keep those hidden treasures a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, what would you say how do you balance, like, your creativity along with the logistics when you're filming especially in a new destination?
I have to give it to my camera team because I'll tend to sit there and want to talk to somebody for a long time or film this or, really you dive in, you have to. But they're really good. Mike and Jose just be like, okay, they'll kind of give me the 15-minute warning kind of thing, because we got to stay on task and things like that. So I mean, having a good crew of people around you that help support you. Or they'll be like, don't forget to do this. You still got to film this close or this opening. We're just such a good team. And I'm really grateful to be able to work with them. They make all the difference. And they're the reason we've won awards. Much as I'd say I'm such a great host, I'm sure it's pretty much all them.
Sounds like good teamwork, I love
Yeah,
that.
it is.
So, aside from that, what would you say creates a successful travel and outdoor show?
Well, think about it. What do you think people want to see when you as the viewer are listening to something or watching something? What engages you? And also what drives you? I do a lot of market research, there's a lot of great information out there about what people the five top things that they look for when they're planning a trip. And the kind of the stages. So I try to be mindful of what trends are. I don't want to be too trendy, but I want to include some of those things. Ecotourism is so popular and it's getting even more popular. So I feel like, paying attention, being aware, doing your research, talking to different destinations or chambers, things like that. And they put out a lot of good information, giving the viewers and the listeners what they want and what they're looking for when they're planning a trip or looking to do something in the outdoors. And also, if you get any kind of fan mail or people give you feedback on social media, that's great too, because then that also kind of, you can put your finger on the pulse of what people are really looking for. And I don't mind people saying, "Hey, what about this?" or "I like that," or "That was really dumb." Or, most of the time it's always really positive. So really just connecting with people and getting that feedback too.
And I think that's important too because now you're listening to your audience, they feel like, okay, you're actually taking their input into consideration. And I'm sure for them, it makes them look forward to like, all right, well, she's gonna do this episode, she's gonna visit this destination that we kind of help inspire that, or like we voted on it. So I know whenever I kind of put polls up sometimes on like my social media, my community, they love to kind of, give their input. And usually like I post it and that does really well for me because they want to kind of like follow up and be like, okay, well, let's see, we picked
What'd you
for her to go to this hiking trail versus this waterfall. Let's see how that went. So I definitely
Exactly. I
think it's
love
good.
that.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
really
that's
nice to
fun.
engage your audience. All right, Misty, are you ready for some fun rapid fire questions?
Shoot. Okay, I'm ready. I think I'm ready. I think so.
All right, so you're on the hot seat right now.
Okay.
So, favorite place that you ever filmed?
So hard.
That is a tough
I'm
one.
gonna say Costa Rica right now. Yeah.
Yeah, Costa Rica is a good one. What places in Costa Rica did you visit?
I've only been down south at this place called Crocodile Bay in the Osa Peninsula. And just down there, I mean, it's just so cool. It's so magical. In your mind, when you think Costa Rica, it's there. It's exactly what you want. It's authentic. There's no cities. It's really cool.
I love Costa Rica. We had such a great time when we went
And
there,
the
but we stood in the
people.
northern area, so definitely have to go back and explore the southern area. All right, a dream destination that you haven't visited yet.
I have never been really anywhere in Europe. That's why I'm watching The Housewives right now. They're in Italy. So I would love to go, I would say Greece and Italy.
Two favorite places of mine, so you can't go wrong with either one. All right, are you a sunrise adventurer or a sunset adventurer?
Sunrise for sure.
Interesting. See, I'd rather sleep in and catch a beautiful sunset.
I like both, but yeah, definitely I'm getting up early. I'm like, let's go. Yeah.
You're like, I'm ready to go, so let's do
Yeah.
this. All right, what is your must-have travel item?
Ooh. I would say definitely, of course, comfortable clothing. And I gotta have lotion. Like
Not for nothing, that is an
if
underestimated item.
mhm. Because, if I was like if they said 5 things and we're taking you out and putting you somewhere, I would have some type of lotion with me. I need it.
Yeah, you don't wanna have dry hands out there.
Oh, hate it. I hate that. Yeah.
I feel you on that one. Well, Misty, thank you so much for being on the show. Before we wrap up, what advice would you give someone who wants to start exploring the outdoors and planning adventure travel, but isn't sure where to begin, or maybe they just feel hesitant about stepping outside of their comfort zone?
So I would say there's so much information out there, whether it's my show, your podcast, magazine articles, decide the type of trip, that fits good for you. I'm not the kind of one that would plan a shopping trip. That's not my jam. So, but think about where you want to go, why you want to go there, and in your mind, how do you fantasize that trip? And then kind of once you get a feel for what you want to do, there's so much information out there. And plan a lot of the things that you love to do, but at least plan one or two, whether it's a culinary experience or a cultural or an outdoor. Step outside the line just a little bit, because I think you'll find from that point on, you're going to go a little further and a little further. And pretty soon you are going to be an outdoor adventure seeker as well.
Love that. And like you said, start small. Maybe on this one trip, you want to do one thing that pushes you outside of your comfort zone. I know that's something that I always strive to do in every trip that I take. It's like, all right, let me try something new, something different. Sometimes I succeed. Sometimes I'm just like, you know what? Maybe that's a little too adventurous for me.
But just, we don't have to go crazy. Be true to yourself. but also be true to that little adventure child in there that is like, man, let's just go try it, and be safe, of course. Do your research, but go for it. Life is short.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, Misty, what is next for you and where can our listeners find you?
A lot of places, which is great. We are gearing up for season 6. I am my first episode. Or I apologize, season 7. We just wrapped season 6. We're gearing up for season 7. I'm going to Okeechobee, which I've never filmed there, do some bass fishing. Of course, we're going to go to the Cayman Islands. I mentioned Wisconsin. Going back to Arkansas, we film a lot in my beautiful home state of Florida. And I think over to Alaska. I mean, I'm willing to go anywhere. So you guys can find me, of course, on Discovery channels, whether it's Go Plus or the regular channel. But digitally, we're on so many digital networks like Waypoint, Carbon TV. We're on Outdoor America. And then one fun thing, I'm sure a lot of people know who Morgan Wallen is. Very huge, the biggest country star, I think, in the world right now. He and Eric Church just launched a new network, Field and Stream. So now Field and Stream goes beyond the boundaries of the magazine to a network, and we're airing on Field and Stream as well. But just go
Nice.
to mistywells.com and pretty much you can see all my episodes on there as well. So just put my name in, you'll be able to find me.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to include that in our show notes as well. But again, thank you so much, Misty, for being on the show. I know I'm excited and ready to plan my next outdoor adventure. So thank you to everyone to listening in tonight. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. So again, a huge thank you to our guests for joining us and sharing her incredible adventures and insights with us today. So if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your travel loving friends. It really helps our podcast grow and reach more amazing listeners. So until next time, besties, keep exploring, keep laughing, and remember, the best stories begin when you step outside your comfort zone. So until the next one.
Bye.